Here we go with another orange and blue today. It is Cecil Lammey and Andrew Mason. And Mace, we got to go over one of your latest articles at denversports.com. It is 7 returning Broncos most affected by the NFL draft. And right at the top, the number one player for you is Jarrett Stidham.
I mean, that's obvious. He wasn't just affected by the draft. He was affected by the trade a few days before the draft for Zach Wilson. And the question is, how many reps is Jarrett Stidham going to get? The Broncos are in a really interesting spot because are they going to treat this competition as two-way with the veterans or three-way, including Bo Nix? I'm sorry, I'm not going to include Ben DiNucci in that. I don't think the Nuke, beloved in this realm, the Nuke is, but I don't think we're talking about him being in the mix to get actual competitive reps the way the others are. But there's only so much to go round, and is Jarrett Stidham really going to be able to show progress from year to year with a limited amount of repetitions?
Well, and I asked Sean Payton at the coaches breakfast, like, when do we know? Because Sean in his answer was like, we don't know yet. But like, Mace, for you, because I've seen enough of Stidham. Okay, I'm kind of like, all right, we know what he is. Are you the same way? Or do you, like Sean Payton, think maybe we could see a little bit more? It's probably fair, but when is life fair?
I get what Sean Payton is saying, that you have somebody who had a limited number of reps to this point in his career. And also the whole thing of second year in a scheme, how much progress has he made? But at the same time, it's a results-oriented business, and the results for Jarrett Stidham, they've been in a perceptible decline over 4 starts. Yes, that's a small sample size, including the 2 starts that he made in Las Vegas. But those are 4 starts over the first 5 seasons of his career. He's going into year 6. So what is also included in that is opportunities in practice to show that he could be a starter and not getting them. I'm referring specifically to back in 2020 in New England when they get rid of Tom Brady and you had Jarrett Stidham and they bring in Cam Newton. As we saw that season, Cam did not have a heck of a lot left. And it's unfortunate, but injuries caught up to him. They really started catching up to him in 2018. By 2020, not much left. The incredibly dynamic performer of the mid-2010s who was a league MVP was gone.
Yeah.
And Jarrett Stidham couldn't get a start in that competition. Jarrett Stidham, who Bill Belichick and company had specifically chosen the previous year, which led people saying, oh, wow, maybe this is the Tom Brady successor. They had that in mind. That's the thing. The Patriots had it in mind for Jarrett Stidham to potentially succeed Tom Brady. So they gave him opportunities in practice and it wasn't there. So here you have, when you go to different places and the results are the same, it's fair to say, okay, this may well be who he is, where the peak on Jarrett Stidham is steady backup.
Yeah, and they thought he would be their next Jimmy Garoppolo, right? And like, he's the Brady successor. He can work out just like Jimmy, and it didn't.
Actually, not only Jimmy Garoppolo, Jacoby Brissett.
Yep.
I mean, here we are with Brissett, and he's in New England. There's a decent chance he's starting a bunch of games for the Patriots this year, now that he's taken the circle all the way back to New England. But what does Brissett have in common? Wherever he goes, when he comes in in relief, he plays pretty well. Like, he's not elite level, but if you're considering backup quarterbacks, let's say you consider Drake May the starter, Jacoby Brissett the backup in New England. Are there more than 2 backups in the league better than Jacoby Brissett? No. I mean, he is that classic guy who's kind of, you'd say, he's actually a starter. He's a fringe starter, but he's a starter. Jarrett Stidham is not at that level. Jimmy Garoppolo, now he's probably become a fringe starter to backup, but for several years, was a solid starter in the league. And they came from the same environment as Jarrett Stidham. I think it's fair to say that he just doesn't match up with those quarterbacks. And if he doesn't match up with those quarterbacks, you're not talking about someone who is a potential answer.
Right. You want to set up this Payton on Stidham clip that we got from the coach's breakfast?
Yeah, just had a chance to ask him. This was actually a question that I asked Sean Payton at the coach's breakfast back in Orlando about kind of where Stidham stood, going into the year, and especially also after seeing him for a couple of games last year. Let's check that out.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think relative to his vision, it's kind of exactly where we saw it a year ago. We felt like this is a player who can compete. We felt like he's got upside, a young player that's really played a limited amount of snaps relative to the years he's been in the league. Did anything change in those last two games leading to this season? I can't say, in fairness to him or the process, definitively that anything did, other than we still feel real positive about this player, and we're anxious to see him when he's getting a lot more snaps and work with the ones.
Now, in the course of this expansive media availability that he had, it was supposed to be 30 minutes. It went much longer than that because as you and I have talked about that day, Sean was in kind of riff mode, right? Like
I love it. I love it.
When he's in riff mode, it's kind of fun. Let's, it's like, okay, go with that. Like, I mean, we've actually had Sean Payton say to, the PR staff, hey, I want to do a conference call or whatever next year where you're not cutting me off. I'm like, great.
That's great for us, right?
Fasten the seatbelt and I'm there for the duration, right?
Right.
It helps our show. He gives us stuff to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. So he's saying that Stidham's going to get a lot more snaps. And in the course of this press conference, he's also saying, hey, they're going to add, right? He's talking a lot about the quarterback visits that he's having. George Payton later that day said, we're adding a veteran and then we get to the draft and we'll see, right? So Sean Payton is saying this, knowing that there's going to be quarterbacks coming in, and yet in the course of that, saying that Jarrett Stidham is going to get more reps. I would expect that first practice of OTAs that we see here coming up in about in a little under 3 weeks.
Right.
I expect Jarrett Stidham's going to get the first snap.
Yes, and it's important to note on that quote when Sean Payton says, we look forward to seeing him when he's getting a lot more first-team snaps. That means May. I've said in August I want Bo Nix, but this begs the question then, Mace. Is May really the time for Jarrett Stidham to prove that he can be the guy, at least temporarily, or the time where he can outplay Zach Wilson? Because we have a Wilson versus Stidham competition that's going to be going on behind the scenes. It's all about Bo Nix, but behind the scenes, Stidham versus Wilson is going to be a thing. And it sounds like May's going to be the time where Jarrett Stidham can maybe get the lead.
Yeah, and this is why when I wrote about the 7 players whose outlook changed as a result of the draft, I started with Jarrett Stidham. Now, him opening OTAs as the quarterback, as I expect him to, that's not a change, but what is the change is he's got an incredible urgency for not just his short-term future in Denver, but his long-term future. I don't think his long-term future is a starter, but is this a guy who has the potential to play another decade as a backup? Yeah.
Sure.
And what he does, believe it or not, what he does in OTAs in May to establish where he's going to factor in the quarterback room going into the season and whether he can maybe be enough to be the season opening starter and hold off Bo Nix for a bit. All this is going to determine what happens to him when his contract expires.
Right.
But if he struggles in May, we're not just talking about, when his contract expires. We're talking about, is he a cut in August as you get down to the deadline? Because the Broncos do save $5 million against the cap if they cut Jarrett Stidham.
Right.
And that is relevant to this discussion.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot on the line that you don't even really realize. It's Bo Nix, yeah, but Stidham's career is going to be kind of forecast.
In May, think about that. In May and June,
yeah,
we're talking about a moment that could be the fork in the road for Jarrett Stidham's football life.
You got 10 more years or 2 more years?
I mean, it's wild to say this about OTAs. I would argue maybe nobody has more riding on OTAs than Jarrett Stidham.
Yeah, it's a fascinating conversation. And if we think of New England backups, I'm like, okay, what does the future hold for City? Because I remember when Zach Robinson was drafted by the Patriots in the 7th round. I remember when Kevin O'Connell out of San Diego State was a 3rd rounder. You know, Davis Webb now on the head coaching track. Davis Webb is
Didn't they have Cliff Kingsbury for a bit too?
They had Cliff Kingsbury for a bit.
Yes.
I think he was a 7th rounder. So it's like, is Stidham on that track? I'm not sure if he is, Mace. I've always said like Kellen Moore. Like, okay, Brett Rippon is going to be like Kellen Moore.
Ooh.
Is Stidham on that track?
Ooh. Okay. Brainwave here. Okay. Brainwave. I think we can agree Davis Webb is on an upward trajectory, right?
1000%. Future head coach.
Yes. The fact that he got that offensive coordinator role at the Shrine back in January, that was a big step for him.
Yes.
Okay. In terms, what we're seeing now with the Shrine and the Senior Bowl is if you're getting those looks as coaches, it's a sign of, okay, this person is one to watch. He is a nascent coach.
Right.
And oh, by the way, Davis Webb was part of running a much better practice than the guys who ran the practice for Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. But hey, maybe all of that helped other teams not get as keen on Bo Nix because it's fair to say that wasn't a good week for Bo Nix down in Mobile.
Right.
But we kept telling you it wasn't a good week, but these were the factors working against him.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah. Anyway, so my brainwave cease is what if when Davis Webb moves on to a larger role, perhaps a coordinator role somewhere, what if the person replacing him is Jarrett Stidham?
That could be an option. That could be a possibility. And if you're Stidham, you have to think about this. Do you want to struggle for the next couple of years, like moving around, moving your family, like bouncing around, whatever? Or do you want to just get started coaching?
He's got QB coach stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I don't know if him. He's got the personality.
That's the thing. It doesn't come across necessarily in press conferences, but we see him in the locker room and he relates to everybody. Like when teammates were talking about how happy they were that Stidham was getting a shot late in the season, that was legit. Jarrett Stidham's well liked in the Bronco locker room.
Yes.
I mean, one of the things that I loved last year was, and sometimes I'd just listen, sometimes I get kind of roped into it, being involved in a Jarrett Stidham, Jerry Jeudy discussion. Those two were fun talking together. Like I think Stiddy's gonna miss Jerry because it's sort of the Auburn and Alabama thing. They give each other a lot of crap, but it was really It was out of fondness and fondness and friendship that the two of them had. But a lot of guys in that, like Jarrett Stidham, gets along with everybody. He's like the Ferris Bueller,
Yeah.
They all adore him. They think he's a righteous dude.
A righteous dude is Jarrett Stidham. And this is kind of becoming a Stidham show base, honestly, because it's like, wow, the future is right there for him. But what does he want it to be? Because he could be just like a Davis Webb. Next thing we know, Jarrett Stidham is a coach somewhere.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, I think as a player, you let that play out for as long as possible too. But again, it depends on what happens starting later this month. There is a scenario where year 2 in Sean Payton's offense, he's more comfortable. Maybe you give him Tim Patrick, for getting some reps. Although I imagine with Timmy Patrick, even though the Achilles rehab, he's, might have him on track to do OTAs. I wonder if they're cautious with him and they wait till training camp.
They should
But
be, yeah.
you get Jarrett Stidham out there, second year in the offense, going through his progressions quickly, knowing what he wants to do, getting the ball out on time. I'm willing to say that there's a possibility that we watch Jarrett Stidham and say, oh, you know what? He looks good. He's making some plays out there. And comparing him to, say, where he was at this time a year ago. Because that's the thing. We watched him in OTAs last year. You and I, if he's better in OTAs this year, we'll see it. We'll tell you.
Yeah.
We can't tell you like details on plays and things like that, but we can tell you, hey, we think Jarrett Stidham's looking better. And we're not going to BS you on that.
And he'll love the competition of Zach Wilson. That's the thing about Stidham is like it's not like he's going to be afraid. Former first rounder, whatever. Stidham was considered a potential first rounder before his final season in Auburn. So it's like he's been in that. He doesn't care. Hey, that's Zach Wilson. I'll go beat him.
Yeah, it's fascinating, but it's going to compete. It's really interesting. Is the future all about Bo Nix? Yes, it is. No doubt about it. But the present may be not quite seeing Nix get the baton just yet. I mean, are we talking about an OTAs where the first team reps are all Jarrett Stidham and Zach Wilson and Bo Nix is waiting? That's possible.
Sure.
And this is the thing. There are only so many reps to go around here. For Bo Nix, it may involve showing whether it's with the 2s or the 3s, kind of similar to Russell Wilson back in 2012 in Seattle, showing just that he's got more skill than the other guys. And if he does that with the 3s, it'll be obvious. You'll know.
Yeah. He should be able to pluck those guys apart. It should be obvious so much so that we're like, okay, hurry it up, get him up the depth chart, move along.
But yeah, these guys, the Broncos are in this situation right now where you have a player who started 2 games for you, a former first-round pick who you just brought in last week, and a first-round pick. They all need reps. And you're having a competition here. How long do you let the competition go before you say, okay, one of these guys has to start getting all the first-team reps, right? That's the conundrum in which the Broncos find themselves here.
Well,
it does matter because even though I think we can all say, yeah, the team is rebuilding, but they are, no doubt, even though they won't say the word, but they want to win this year. They want to give it a good college try.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And it matters to it matters to Sean Payton. It matters to all those players in that locker room as well. That's the other thing, Players in the NFL average career, 3.3 years? They don't have time for a rebuild.
They don't have time and they want to win. And that's why when you and I are in the locker room, and it's not that I am necessarily cautious with what I say, but for people that want to see like, oh, the Broncos suck and their O-line sucks and they're not going anywhere, go in the locker room and tell those guys that. I'm not saying they'd kick your ass, but I'm just saying none of those guys believe that, hey, we're just a bunch of slappies and we don't have any shot. These guys are going to compete.
I always say the 90th person on the roster in training camp who gets brought in for 2 days, and that's their only shot, they still accomplished something. They still got to the NFL, right?
That's big.
That is
what
big.
do you do when you're there? Our friend Khalif Raymond, like, look at Khalif going around getting his contract, like having his career with the Lions mainly. But it's like, I love those type of stories, right? Like you nobody expected you to do anything and you made it and you keep making it.
I wish the Broncos had hung on to Khalif. I like that dude a lot.
I like him. Whenever he makes a play, I'll text him just because like he can make plays. Like he's a good dude. Good dude. Yep, right there. So this has turned into a Stidham show. I don't want to shorten up everybody else, Mace, but I will say this. We'll tease the rest of your article. We did talk about Drew Sanders yesterday.
Yes.
So before we're out of here for today, and go check out denversports.com, 7 returning Broncos most impacted by the NFL draft. I'll give you one thing on your Brandon Johnson thing, because it is Brandon Johnson affected. I think also the new special teams rules will affect it because Jalen Virgil should be a returner back there with Marvin Mims. And so it's like now your wide receiver room is really cramped with Troy Franklin and Devon Vele added.
Yeah. The question on kickoffs, though, is are they going to resemble punts more than kickoffs in terms of the space that you're going to have? We know that is something that Marvin Mims is comfortable with. And I do think Jalen Virgil will be in the conversation. But is that returner out there with Mims on kickoffs? Is it maybe somebody from the running back room as well who's got shiftiness, right? And I didn't mention a running back who is in the special teams mix for returner in my article, but that's where the conversation goes to Jaleel McLaughlin and undrafted pickup Blake Watson.
Who knows how to pass protect?
Yes, they both say they've got to get better at it, both Watson and McLaughlin. And actually, we could probably we'll focus on the running backs because I did write that player affected Samaje Perine, right?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, Javonte Williams probably as well by what's going on. I mean, when Sean Payton comes in and says his first vision for Audric Estime is first and second down back, and he even mentions friends asking him, why are you taking a running back? It's like, it's the dynamic of the room is on his mind, okay, when he says that.
Yes, and I don't want to scare anybody, Mace, but I will say this. All sorts of combinations for the running back room. We're not even talking about Burton. Burton's in that room. Like, I think any combination can happen. I want everyone to have a job forever and ever and ever. But if you told me Javonte didn't make the 53, while somewhat shocking, I wouldn't be surprised. Samaje seems like the odd man out. Jaleel seems pretty set in what he does. But if Blake Watson's just better, Jaleel's not. There's no pen on this depth chart.
Here's the thing with Javonte. And I'm not sure we're going to know this until pads go on. But if he is now at nearly 2 years removed from that horrific knee injury, if he is back to where he was in 2021, it becomes a real interesting room and a real dynamic room. Like, if all of a sudden Javonte goes from 3.6 yards a carry to 4.5 yards carry, changes everything. Changes everything for this team.
He's a Pro Bowler. I mean, they're going to run the hell out of the ball. And if Javonte's that dude again, look out.
What did Sean Payton say when I asked him about developing a rookie quarterback? He said that the things that help that rookie quarterback along the most are running game and defense, right? And look around the rest of the draft. Yeah, you had some receivers, but you had a pass rusher. You had another corner. So you got two players at premium positions. You had traded for John Franklin Myers because you needed another defensive lineman. And then you drafted Audric Estime. It's all like, he's not telling you everything, but he's telling you a lot about what the plan is here.
Yes. Yes. Listen. All you got to do is listen. There we go. Well, that show, and I love when we do this, Mace, but it takes a different direction, It's like the Stidham stuff is so interesting. If he's going to be a coach, like, all right, so we teased the rest of the article. Everyone check it out, denversports.com, but good work, buddy.
Good work from you as well. You kind of bring this out, man. We kind of bring stuff out in each other, I think.
When we have those moments, it's like, oh my God, that could be a realistic thing, man. It's all right in front of us.
I was excited about OTAs because I'm always excited to see the team work again after not being there. When they have that last practice of the season in January that we can see like 25 minutes of, and I walk away, I'm always sad when I walk away. I miss those glimpses. It's like, and then we get a few weeks later to Shrine, and it's like, we get to Senior Bowl. It's like,
I remember this,
and now I'm lucky enough to be able to do a fair amount of baseball, and even like sitting there at batting practice. It's like I just dig the environment, man.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. What makes me sad is the locker room. The final day the locker room's open when they're cleaning out their lockers, because like when we talked to Josie, we knew it. He knew it. It's just heartbreaking, man. Like, I flipping love Josie Jewell, and I know that's the last time I'm going to talk to him in the Broncos locker room.
We had some of those on Monday in the locker room the day after the season-ending loss to the Raiders, and we had some of them the previous day in Las Vegas. Lloyd Cushenberry, Justin Simmons, man.
Right.
They knew.
Think about that, man.
They knew. Like sometimes I actually go back and rewatch Justin's media availability after that Raider game. Like it's sad. And here we are sitting in May. It's May. Nobody has Justin Simmons on their roster. Wow.
Craziness.
Yes. We're after the draft now. And Justin Simmons is sitting there. Justin now, it may behoove him to wait until August.
1,000%. Yeah. Now, when it gets to this point, you're just like, I'm signing in August somewhere with a contender, most likely.
He's the best player available. At this point, it's like, do the Evan Mathis thing. Wait until August, and then is there a contender that needs you? I'd still say Green Bay should bring him in. I think he'd be perfect there.
Yeah.
And I think he'd have a real chance. I may be picking Green Bay to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl this year. That's another reason why.
Simmons.
Yeah, like it. Hey, I'm trying to make a match here. You know, that would work, I think. But yeah, wow, Justin Simmons is not on a team here on May 1st.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Craziness abounds on Orange and Blue today. He's Andrew Mason. You follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. But Mace, before we're out of here, how do folks help us out on YouTube?
You can like.
You can comment.
You can share.
You can subscribe.
And you can hit that notification bell.
So that you can
never miss vid. I kind of like throwing that curveball at you in terms of how I do that.
You know,
time to time.
It's kind of our thing, right? It's our thing.
Yeah,
that's the way we do it. Stay tuned for an OBT2 tonight with Chad Ryder from NFL Network. Some big stuff coming for you the rest of this week, as well as more esteemed colleagues join us right here on Orange and Blue today. Subscribe.
We're doing our draft debriefing, I think, this week, and that's like with some, Chad Ryder and we're some people that you've seen on our show before,
right?
And it's actually interesting. Yeah, it's good to have these conversations because we had them back, at the combine, at the shrine, etc. And then now we're sort of revisiting kind of what happened, and so we got more of that. So yes, bonus OBTs coming. Excited about that. I know.
That's right. Always
a little more work, but that's okay.
Nah,
we like doing more.
We love it for you guys, man. We appreciate you all. He's Mace. I'm Cecil. OBT is a BFD. As always, I want you to stay tuned. And would you please stay frosty?